So if you're planning a trip somewhere, don't you want to see what it looks like before you get there? Don't you want to see what it's like to just walk around the place? I know there's a lot of YouTube videos out there that kind of partially do this or sloppily do this. Well, take a look at stripwalking.com. Stripwalking.com is the ultimate interactive walking video experience. They have point of view videos that enable people to experience virtual tours of places in a really unique way. And with their innovative technology, you can customize your route by choosing the start and end locations, allowing you to take control of your journey. They started with the Las Vegas Strip, which is why it's called strip walking. And no, okay, it's not about strippers. All right, this is strip walking. As they say on their website, settle down. They do keep their clothes on, but it is a very clever name. I have to give them that. And they're expanding right now. They didn't just do the Las Vegas Strip. They also did Disneyland, Universal Orlando, Worlds of Fun in KC, and the Omaha Zoo. They're expanding into other areas as well. They even have a strip talking podcast, so check that out. But right now they have those 5 locations. And if you guys go to Vegas or you're thinking about Vegas, I know I am, but you want a real feel for what it's like to be there, head over to stripwalking.com. All right. And you can get a real feel for it. They've got some great point of view experiences that you can see without stepping foot into Vegas, without booking that trip yet, if you want to get a feel for the place. And as I said, there's other locations as well. A great site if you want to check it out. It's called stripwalking.com.
This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The one that everybody wants, me.
Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my idol. You're going to acknowledge me.
All right, let's get to the emails and the voicemails, if we have any here on our Mailbag show for this 8th day of November, 2024, off of a fun wrestling week. A very tumultuous week in the election season, but election season's over, and either my condolences or congratulations, depending on your perspective. So I'll be dropping, by the way, a new episode of The War on Truth, which is available to everybody for free over at Apple or Spotify. It's called The War on Truth, and you'll get my take on the goings on there, and I'll leave it there. So, all right, let's get to patrons and the Patreon side of things. And one big thing going on there, I want to let you know, for those of you who are thinking about Patreon, I've got a brand new promotion, huge promotion, really. I'm offering 50% off the first year. If you get an annual membership, right now it's half off. It's only going to be going on for a few days here. I might extend it to a week, but I'm not sure yet. And the code, the coupon code is Bloodline. Bloodline, if you type that in, if you are going for an annual subscription, it'll give you 50% off for the entire year. But you have to get an annual subscription, okay? It doesn't apply to monthly. I may come up with a monthly promo in the coming weeks, but for now, 50% off if you're looking to do a yearly subscription on any tier. Any tier this will apply to over on Patreon. So really get it while it lasts. I'm not going to keep it up for long. So, okay, let's dive into the emails. And we're going to go with, start with DJ, right? Let's start with DJ. Longtime listener, good guy. And he says, finally, all roads lead to Survivor Series War Games. Live from Vancouver, since Roman's return at SummerSlam, this year's Survivor Series is what I'm looking forward to watching. Hopefully live if the start time is in the evening rather than being live in the middle of a Saturday afternoon like Crown Jewel. Agreed. We're all spoiled here in the United States, especially on the East Coast. Everything starts nicely right like 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and it's right when you're right after dinner, you're tuckered out. You know, you can sip on some warm milk and wrap yourself in a blankie. But if it's in the middle of the day, it's like, it doesn't feel right. But okay, The Rock's new holiday action movie Red 1 is released in theaters on Friday, November 15th. Is it possible The Rock shows up on one of the remaining 3 episodes of SmackDown, Milwaukee, Salt Lake, or Vancouver before Survivor Series or at Survivor Series? And if Rhea is going to be out due to injury, it seems like there will be no Women's War Games match this year, with just 3 weeks till Survivor Series. So I think you'll have The Rock appear, or at least rumored to appear. I'd give it a 50-50 that he appears before Survivor Series. You know, it's interesting. The Rock shows up, stands on stage, leaves. We haven't seen him in like 6 weeks. The Rock's just gone. He shows up, doesn't say a word, at least on the air. He did say a bunch of stuff backstage, walking backstage, talking trash. And a lot of hints to Stone Cold even. Even mentioned Stone Cold by name in that backstage rant that he did after Bad Blood, saying he's my boy. So can we get a stunner, please? It has to happen. Make good. They got to make good at WrestleMania 41. Yeah, I mean, he has to be involved at the bare minimum at Survivor Series or after. I think The Rock probably shows up at Survivor Series in some form. But as far as Rhea goes in the women's division, and are they going to get a women's War Games match? Well, I still think they can. And the reason is it doesn't have to be about Liv versus Rhea. In fact, I would argue that most fans need a break from that. Most fans need a break. It's not that it's been bad. It's just been strung out. And this may have been the final version of that program. But if it takes a break and comes back and we finish it up in December, that's fine too. But just because Rhea's out doesn't mean the entire women's division doesn't have to be represented in the War Games. I still think they will be. I still think that just because Rhea's out doesn't mean everyone else has to go, oh, well, I guess there's no women's War Games match. I don't think that that's what they'll do, but I'd be very surprised if that happens. Finally, as a little homework assignment and good information for you, your podcast, since you've been asking how many triple threat matches that have been in WWE this year, I did some research at cagematch.net. There have been 25 triple threat matches in WWE this year, including or excluding NXT, but including NXT, there have been 32. If there's another triple threat this year, before this year is over, in NXT or the main roster or both, 2024 will go down in WWE history as the year with the most triple threat matches. Whatever happened to one-on-one, where there is a clear winner and the match ends at a DQ or the match ends in some sort of time limit draw? It seems like Triple H for the WWE main roster and Shawn Michaels for the NXT roster have a need for more triple threat matches than usual. But why? DJ Kuzma is signing off. Have a great weekend. See you all, everybody in the Discord chat for Friday Night SmackDown. Okay, so I'm not going crazy. The amount of triple threats is insane, and it will likely be the most triple threats in a single year in WWE. Now, this I'm going to assume, DJ, that these are televised triple threats. These are not house shows or non-televised events. So these are just televised only. If you included all of the house shows, I'm sure you're, closer to the 100 mark. But this is crazy. And here's the reason why. I'm just going to call it like I see it. Triple threat matches, when you lean on them this much, it's a lazy booking in some instances, and I also think it's a crutch in others, or the inability to really put your faith in 2 guys instead of 3. Because one-on-one almost always tells a better story. And when they put in a 3rd guy or a 3rd gal, whatever the case is, that tells you that they're relying more on the match just being great and including more people. More star power is better, instead of the story being what drives the match. They're relying on triple threats, which is a lot of times what you'll see in matches that are no DQ for no reason, when they're adding things that are trying to deodorize their lack of being able to tell a good story. They add these bells and whistles to cover up for the fact that, hey, yeah, we kind of recognize we don't really have a great story going on here, so we'll add additional stuff that's surface level that hopefully you guys are satisfied with and don't really see how unappealing this story is. That's not the reason for every triple threat. Of course, there's reasons to do triple threats. I'm saying when it's overused, a lot of the time, I think that's the reason. So, thanks, DJ. We'll get to that Joe Hendry report, as always, in just a few. Let's talk to Dino. And he says, is there any update on the potential War on Truth After Dark show? So, yeah, good. Keep keep pressing me. It's been a long week with the election. That took some out of me, as I'm sure it did a lot of you, depending on, of course, the outcome which you wanted. You're either elated and exhausted or depressed and exhausted, one of the two. So, there's that, work, life, family, this show, trying to do my other, it's a lot, but I appreciate it, Dino. I will make a gosh dang effort to continue putting that up on Patreon. It's not as simple as on Patreon. If you guys want to create your own stuff on Patreon, you'll go and see. It's not as simple as like a couple of clicks. There's a lot that goes into it, thought and tiers, and what do you want to offer on different tiers, and coming up with a banner. The banner has to be the right pixel size, or all these things that people don't even realize. So thank you, Dino. I will continue I'll put that on my to-do list. I really will. So before I get into my serious points, I've always wondered what you've previously mentioned. You can see what countries you have listeners in. What are the most obscure places or locations in the world where we all at least expect to be listening to this podcast from, i.e. North Korea, which is funny because that would be illegal for them. Greenland, Gaza, or even Antarctica. Where in the world are people listening to this podcast from that we'd least expect? I'd find it quite intriguing. I love that question. Thank you. Let me look here. I'm digging into my listening statistics. I'm going in here, geolocation in Spreaker here, which is where I'm based out of. I'm based on Spreaker. So you guys want some weird places that this podcast to listen to? And I'm not making this up. All right. The majority of our listeners, of course, are, and this is in the last year. Okay. The last 1 year. All right. So this is, not including like the life of the show, but a year is a pretty good sample. So 90% of our listeners do come from the United States. All right. Most of the listeners do. However, as we dig into other weird places, of course, Canada is another place that you would not be surprised to hear. And let's see here. Here's some weird ones. We've got South Africa. We've got Australia. 5%, almost 6% of our listeners are from Australia. We've got some from New Zealand. We've Japan, Philippines. I think I know who that. We used to have somebody from the Philippines that he used to call in every week. India. Here's Kenya, Ghana, Libya, Egypt, Italy, France, Spain, Germany, Sweden, UK, Ireland. Let's see. I do not see North Korea, sadly. So I think that kind of does it here. So yeah, Ghana's a weird one. We do have some people from Africa, the continent of Africa, who are listeners of the show. Japan is interesting to me. Japan and New Zealand. I didn't know I had anybody listening there. Pretty interesting. We have, the DR, Dominican Republic. We have Mexico, Singapore, Netherlands. I mean, this is literally a worldwide show. I mean, again, most of the listeners, the vast majority of listeners, I take that back, 65% are from the United States. 65%, not 90. 65% are from the United States. 8% from Canada and the UK. So my top 5 regions that listen to the show is the US, the UK, Canada, and Australia. Those are the top 5. Top 4, if I can't count. So there you go. Pretty interesting, huh? And I look at, we're coming up, I think we're getting close to, we're almost to 3 million downloads total, which is pretty damn cool. I really appreciate everybody's support. Okay. In regards to last week Mailbag, when you mentioned people advocating for the Rhea and Liv story to continue until WrestleMania, and that Austin McMahon being the one exception over the years that kept people's interest for that length of time, well, my friend, I give you The Rock versus John Cena, which of course lasted 2 years, with the first match being a year in advance. The hype and excitement for that first match when it was made an entire year before was off the scale for me anyway. At least that's how I remember it. Well, yeah, that is one, except they mentioned it once, and then there's like large gaps of time in which they didn't mention it. So it wasn't like a consistent build. It was just, hey, here's the match that's going to happen next year at WrestleMania. We'll check back in, every few months to get this continue to be hyped, right? And yes, they did have a tag team match at Survivor Series. Remember, it was the Miz, Awesome Truth versus The Rock and John Cena, and Rock's ended up rock bottoming John Cena in that match. Like, they did build nicely, and it was off the charts, but it wasn't like a consistent feud like you would see every week, like Austin McMahon. All right, so Raw in Riyadh was this week. I wasn't expecting that, as I never knew Raw was also going to be in Riyadh. I thought it was just Crown Jewel. I've never seen a single second of Crown Jewel other than the highlights package at the start of Raw, but the crowd seemed to be lively, just like in the other international PLEs. Maybe they've seen the other international PLEs and realized they had to up their game, so I have to give them credit where it's due to be fair. Yeah, Raw and Riyadh, I didn't know either. I mean, maybe it's just because I'm not as tuned in as some of you guys, even though I have a podcast, so it's kind of embarrassing, but I didn't know either, and I give them credit. I'm not a fan of the Saudi PLEs. I think they were amped. They felt more amped almost on Raw than they did at the PLE, and maybe that's because I don't even know if they've ever done a Raw from Riyadh. And it's not the people of Riyadh or the fans or whatever. It's, the government I'm not a big fan of. So, but that said, give them credit where it's due. They were good. And they didn't just go off the rails and start singing and chanting and just going into business for themselves. They were reacting to the product, which is what I really love about that crowd on Monday. What's with the slight change to Damien's theme song? Honestly, there was nothing wrong with it. It's doing my head in the changes they keep making to some of their theme songs, especially some of the ones that were fine the way they were. I don't know. Lately, they've been tweaking every time somebody turns heel or baby. And look what they did with Roman. No need. I don't hate his new music, but it wasn't. The old music was iconic and it fit his character perfectly. And it wasn't a downer of a music. It wasn't like it was just dark and dingy and the fans don't get excited because the music's kind of lame when it comes to getting fans, to sing along. No, his music was awesome. And I have no idea why they tweaked Roman's music. I don't know why they tweaked Damian Priest's. I'm not really a huge fan of it. They tweaked Braun Breaker, who still needs, my God, does he still need to freaking change his music. I mean, they need to overhaul Braun Breaker's music still. But lastly, wow. Oh my God. The road to WrestleMania 41 through Europe in March 2025 has been announced. Raw and SmackDown for 3 weeks straight will be in Europe, with Monday Night Raw being here in Glasgow, Scotland on March 24th. Does this mean we'll get the big stars? Boy, am I hyped. I really hope it's priced reasonably. I don't actually know when tickets go on sale. They didn't say, so we'll see. My God, I did not expect them to come back to Scotland so soon. Imagine we get this every year. It kind of makes me want to go to WrestleMania 41, to be honest, as I was planning on trying to get over for WrestleMania 42 in 2026. But now with everything that 2025 is set to bring with Goldberg, John Cena, and the road to WrestleMania 41 through Europe, I feel as if WrestleMania 42 is going to be, as the kids say these days, mid compared to WrestleManias 40 and 41. Just out of interest, I did look to see how much ringside seats are for WrestleMania 41, and they are $15,000. Damn, 2025 is going to be massive. I'm so excited. It is going to be huge. Here's what it tells you that WWE is taking such a international approach with Riyadh, the PLEs in France and Scotland and in Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, and now over in Europe. They're going to be there for several weeks, and they're going to do a WrestleMania in probably a couple of years over in the UK. It tells you that they have a big global expansion strategy. This is the corporate strategy, globalization, on a scale that Vince never really did. He took the product global, but his live events were rarely global. So you have a new regime under new management with Triple H at the head of creative, but obviously new top management. Vince doesn't have a say anymore at all. And they have a global approach. And taking things in front of fans globally, it's a smart decision. I may not love all of the international crowds because I believe that they're just noise for noise sake, and it's not my thing to me. To me, the graph of just more noise is simply better, like on the Y and X graph, or the Y-axis and the X-axis. It's not a straight line for me. the reason behind the noise to me is more important in reacting to what's in the ring than just chanting there's typical sports chants. That's not my thing. That's all. But I totally agree with their global strategy here. Clearly that's their strategy and it's paying off. They're a hot product. Hot product. No doubt about it. All right, Dino. Let's go to James, another patron. He says, hope everyone had a good weekend. I'm disappointed Goldberg has decided to have one last match, but we knew it was just going to happen. Let's hope the match passes safely and we don't have a repeat of the Super Showdown in 2019, or we could have a serious injury. I hope not. I really do. Again, I'm not a Goldberg fan, but I'm not advocating or wishing that Goldberg or his opponent get hurt or, just to embarrass Goldberg. No, of course not. I'm not saying you're accusing me of that, but some people may read it that way. However, that said, I am concerned about Goldberg's ability to wrestle safely. He doesn't have the greatest track record. Bret Hart nearly killing The Undertaker, right? So, that's not an exaggeration. Undertaker nearly died. It was within an inch or two of at least bare minimum paralyzing Mark Calloway, if not killing him. That's not hyperbole. Go watch the Jackhammer. We all saw it with the Goldberg Undertaker match. So, in terms of Raw and Crown Jewel, I thought they were okay. A couple of solid matches helped build towards future storylines. I fully expect Dom to win the number one contenders match with him hiding from Bronson Reed while the rest get squashed. So, was so nice to get a bit of a shock value seeing Priest win instead. All the best. All right. Thanks, James. I appreciate it. And yes, Priest is he's a big star. I don't think we're there where they want him to be quite yet, but having him as world champ, I really enjoyed it. And I've said that and continue to say it. He exceeded my expectations as world champion. He felt like a world champion. While he cashed in, you're thinking, oh, okay, he beat Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania after cashing in. Cash-ins usually come with a bit of an asterisk, like, okay, yeah, you won, but did you really, but Priest after that settled in nicely as champion and did a really good job. All right. I have another email here. It's not from a patron, but I'm only reading it because it's not really about wrestling. It's more about the podcast. So, this is from Sasha, and they say, I don't know if it's a he or she. So Sasha says, I just solved the problem with Apple Podcasts. If you have any other requests, I unfollowed your podcast and followed it again and updated all the episodes. So weird. Well, thank you for that fix. Apple told me that there's nothing wrong with my feed. I actually reached out to them and a tech came back and said, there's nothing wrong. If you have people that are listening to your show that have something they can't see, they need to reach out to us. So if you have found the golden key here as to how to fix this, I appreciate it. Everybody try that. If you're listening on another platform other than Apple and you're only listening here because the Apple podcast is all screwed up, try unfollowing me and following me again. Maybe, Sasha, you found the golden key. Thank you. Let's go to Freeman, another patron. And Freeman says, with Crown Jewel over and setting up for War Games, we all know it will be old versus new bloodline, 4 versus 4. But the problem with that is, to have it be 4v4, you must let Tonga Loa actually wrestle. We all know that's a bad idea. His signature move is to botch something after all. So I think the more interesting part of this is how they're going to get away with removing either Tonga Loa from the match or hiding him during War Games. Can't let him enter early as he is the one to carry more of the match. Can't let him enter late as the last entrant usually has a big impact. I'm waiting for him to be injured and taken off TV. I mean, I didn't think he was as bad as maybe you do. He's all right. Perhaps they have him maybe get punished on the way to the ring by somebody, and that way he's very limited in the ring, or you kind of hide him as a number 2 or a number 3 entrant and have him just get pummeled and take a lot of offense, but not dish out a lot of offense. I think maybe that's what they do. For the old bloodline, I can see where the story is going and surprised no one else is talking about it. The whole arc is Roman learning to be humble and know that he isn't the tribal chief anymore. So the best way to do this is to crown a new tribal chief and acknowledge Jay as the new tribal chief. This sets up for a great chief versus chief match at WrestleMania, and it gives a satisfying payoff to Roman's arc. Imagine the pop when Jay finally acknowledges Roman again, only for Roman to grab Jay's hand, pull it down, and acknowledge Jay. So I don't think this is impossible, but I will say improbable. The reason, we've seen every which way of the old bloodline imploding. We've seen every which way of Jay and Roman, Roman and Jimmy, Jimmy and Jay, Jay versus Sammy, Sammy versus Jimmy, Sammy versus Roman. Every combination you can think of has happened. Nobody wants to see any more old bloodline versus bloodline. Nobody. I mean, maybe you, Freeman, but I'd say the general public. I shouldn't say nobody. The general viewing public does not want to see that implosion. We've been there. We've done that. It would be rehashing a program we don't need to. It's about the old bloodline. It's about Solo's new bloodline and versus how they're going to pair up against the old bloodline. How's the new the bloodline going to face and handle the OG bloodline? That's the story. And The Rock. Where does The Rock fit into all this? How does he feel about the new bloodline? Was he the one kind of pulling the strings behind the scenes? I think he was. We'll find out. So also, Roman is self-appointed as the OG tribal chief. He has said so on the show. I mean, he said it verbatim that he is, even without the Ulafala, still the tribal chief. He has said so. I don't think anyone's going to challenge him for that. Jay was simply coming up this week or last week and saying, I just want to be equals, right? I'm not trying to pretend I'm the tribal chief. I just want to be equals this time. No more right-hand man, no more grunt work. Equals. So that kind of buries the hatchet. If someone turns on somebody, it's going to be, I think, a big collective groan. Nobody needs to fight for who's the tribal chief. Now, if The Rock wants to come in and you have that program with The Rock like that of who's the tribal chief between The Rock and Roman, then let's go. I mean, we've been advocating for that for 5 years now? Of Rock versus Roman? For the tribal, or at least for since Roman was anointed as the tribal chief, actually back in August of 2020, so 4 years. But no, I'm not on board with this. But Freeman, it's again, just because I don't think it's a good idea doesn't mean that it's not a good idea. All right, let's get into some more of our patrons. Diving into Patreon itself, those were the emails from patrons. But let's get into the community here over on Patreon. Charlie Furman says, what's going on? It's Charlie from Milwaukee. So I'm thinking that with Rhea getting injured, the Women's War Games match is looking like this. Bianca, Jade, and a returning Charlotte Flair and a returning Becky Lynch versus Liv, Raquel, Nia, and Tiffany. That's a hell of a match. A lot of returns in there, though. I don't think that that's a bad card at all. The question is, do you want to fill 2 spots with 2 stars that you could otherwise fill with new stars to give them more exposure? I mean, I also don't want Becky Lynch back. I don't want to see her back. And this is just me. I'm Becky Lynched out, and I'm Becky Lynched out for a long time to come. It's not that she never was a good wrestler, or I thought she was terrible, or she's just, was overrated. I think fans burned out of her. And you can hear it in her reactions as she was getting close to leaving. She relied on a character that was not evolving. She went back from a heel that didn't really work, although I give her credit for trying, to a program or to a character that was nothing different from her 2019 version at WrestleMania 35. It's kind of the same. She wasn't funny when she tried to be. Becky Lynch is very rarely funny. She's not good at comedy. She tried to be and she wasn't. And in the ring, there was never a problem. But I personally, I'm totally Becky Lynched out. If I don't ever see her again wrestle in the ring, and this sounds kind of harsh, but if she calls it a career, I'd give her a standing ovation and say, well done. Thank you. No, we don't want one more match. That's what I'd say. I would not participate in the one more match. I think her character has burned out. That's me. I know I'm probably in a silo here by myself. That's my opinion. But Charlotte, I think there's a little more gas in the tank there. I don't think we'll ever get Charlotte full-time for several years anymore. I think she's kind of morphing or evolving her way out of the business. I think that she's not the youngest anymore. She's more injury prone because of that, because biology and physics. And she seems to be enjoying life without wrestling and throwing herself on the mat 60 times a day. And she doesn't have really anything else to prove. She has had a hell of a career too. So the original 4 horsewomen here are Sasha's gone, which I never want her back again. So I know I'm being harsh here. It's just how I feel. Becky, no hard feelings there, other than just I've burned out of your character. Charlotte, I think there's a little bit more in the tank there that fans would like to see. Again, Sasha Banks is just one of the most conceited human beings that I've ever seen in pro wrestling. She's just insufferable. She believes her own hype. She's not as big of a deal as she thinks she is, and she's totally unappealing to me. She may be very good looking, but I have no interest seeing her back in the WWE ring. Do I think she'll eventually be back? Probably, but I don't want her back. No interest. WWE's fine without her. They don't need her. Bayley, I think they've missed the boat on her as of late. The last couple of years, they've really missed the boat with her. Bayley, though, I think out of all the wrestlers, Bayley is the one out of the 4 horsewomen that has more to show. That we haven't still seen the best of Bayley yet. That there's a character we haven't seen yet. I don't know what that is, but I believe it's there. I know that wasn't your question, but I answered a question that I had in my head. Okay. Also, I'm going to SmackDown next Friday. We'd love to give you an in-person perspective. If you're available, this is Charlie reminding you, go Pack Go. Yeah, Charlie. So SmackDown next Friday. How about we shoot for a Sunday night? Maybe, wait a minute, next Friday. So that's, yeah. So how about next Sunday? We can shoot for a program together. Like, just shoot me a message on Patreon. We'll figure out the details. All right. Frank, I was thinking about Goldberg, and I think his final match should be Braun Breaker. Also Braun Breaker battles John Cena. Final battle. So do you think his Ulaf Fala or Jacob Fatu will join the OG Bloodline or Bloodline 2.0? Thank you. Okay. Well, Goldberg and Braun Breaker. Sure. If that's going to be his final match, sure. It helps give a little bit of rub to Braun Breaker, and Goldberg should absolutely lose. But it seems as if they're pointing to Gunther as his retirement match. And, take that for what it is. I just based on what Goldberg said on a College Game Day show that, that may be the guy he's going to work with is Gunther. And I think, yeah, I don't want Goldberg back either, but apparently they feel that there's some kind of fan out there that wants Goldberg back for a match. I don't know who those people are. But as far as Braun Breaker battling John Cena, yes. Yeah, sure. Yes. That should happen. John Cena should not just face legacy stars in his final year. I don't need to tell him that. He's smart enough to know that. Shouldn't be just all about legacy stars, which is going to be a lot of fun because there's a whole lot of nostalgia there. But it should be also equally about the new stars that can help springboard themselves into their careers with a match against John Cena. Although don't tell Austin Theory that, because beating John Cena did absolutely nothing other than tank his entire following year. And a lot of that had to do not simply because he beat Cena, more about the follow-up, because there wasn't any. So, all right. This is Muller. So speaking of South Africa, I didn't mean to skip your message. My bad. So I'm going to talk about Muller here. I don't know how the hell I missed your message. So I apologize. But here we go. I've been thinking about the scenario a lot lately, and seeing Sami Zayn chat with Solo on Raw. What if he turns on the OG Bloodline? We're all expecting him to join Roman's Bloodline, but also, why should he? I've been thinking, maybe it's fantasy booking in my mind, but we've been waiting for the wise man Paul Heyman to return after his assault from the new Solo Bloodline. We're all waiting for the return of also Brock. I'm thinking Paul Heyman returns, but he comes back with Brock Lesnar. Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar definitely have their history, but one massive thing they have in common deep down is the love they have for Paul Heyman. I would love to see Sami Zayn end up joining Solo's Bloodline, outnumbering the OG Bloodline even more. But who is one man who can even the odds? That's Brock Lesnar. Anyway, hope you're well. It's been a while. Thanks for the podcast. Cheers. Thanks, Miller. And I still think that Brock Lesnar's love of Paul Heyman is, I think it's real. He truly is friends with him. But this is all about Bloodline. There's nothing there with Brock to tie this whole story in other than Paul. And the story is not about Paul. It's about pride. It's about family. And having Brock in there is kind of he's the odd man out. He's a massive star, but he feels like he's a bit of a fish out of water in that story. So I don't think he'll join that. Do I think we'll see Brock, though? Yeah, I think it's going to be Brock, and I still think it's going to be Brock versus Gunther at WrestleMania 41. I'm still going with it. I'm sticking by it. That's my story, though, and that's my belief. But sorry for missing your message last week. I do apologize. All right, so let me just double-check any more messages here. I don't think we have any more. We have... actually, no, my bad. We do have a couple more, but they're not patrons, and that's okay. We'll get to them. And let's go to Kieran. Kieran says, "Hey, Matt, my apologies for not being around. My payment method on Patreon was hacked, and I lost access. I'll rejoin this week." That's, first of all, sorry to hear that. Hope all gets straightened out on that end, and I'll look forward to your return to Patreon. On to Crown Jewel. Don't like this at all and don't want to get into my beliefs, and that's your other show. But overall, not good. My girl Tiffy got jobbed again, but it set up a great feud with Liv now that Rhea's on the shelf. No idea about Nia, but Charlotte will be back soon. A lot was so predictable as always, not interesting. Love Seth and not Braun Strowman. There are 3 Brauns. Braun Breaker, Braun Strowman, and we have, of course, Bronson Reed. So 3 Brauns of sorts. It messes me up every time. But yeah, Seth and Bronson Reed is a lot of fun and has been. Continues to be. Bloodline match, Jan. Thank you for doing a great job. We'll be back on Patreon ASAP. Well, thank you very much. And waiting for Alexis, too. You mean Alexis? Yeah, I know it's Alexi Kaufman, right? Alexa Bliss. I'm guessing that's who you're talking about. Alexa Bliss, I don't know when she's coming back, honestly. There's one that has been totally underutilized the last several years. Now she's gone on to be a mom, and that takes up time, and she may be loving that. I think she is, based on what I'm seeing. But Alexa Bliss is somebody that I don't want her going back to Nikki Cross and joining the Wide Six. I really don't. I think that she has more to offer than going back to being a dark character. We've been there, done that. I don't know what version I want, but not that one. We've seen too much of that. That said, as far as Tiffany jobbing, and it's just not Tiffany's time yet, and that's okay. No pun intended. It's not quite Tiffy time. No matter how many times she says it, it's not there yet. We're still in the developmental stages of Tiffany Stratton's career, and I'm not rushing her. I know a lot of fans just when they like somebody and they start to get a little momentum, want to see them instantly become champion, and sometimes that can be a burden, not a blessing, because when you're put in that position to be champion, there's a lot more pressure on your shoulders, a lot more responsibility on your shoulders. You're looked to as a model and as an example, as a leader for the division that you're in. So I'm not ready for Tiffany yet, and I like the developmental process, but others are a little more impatient. But all right, so. Thank you. And I think one more. We have Bobar. And Bobar says, "I'm 99.9% sure that the live and loud sound meter's fake. Whenever people aren't making much noise, it says things like 106 or 107. I see that too, and they're so proud of the decibels. right? They're just so proud of the decibels. And that's all that matters, is just level of noise. How many decibels? The more decibels, the more successful we are, which I totally do not prescribe to that belief. I think it is a complete false narrative. I don't, as I've already explained it, why more noise just isn't always better if it's higher. Okay. I don't believe in that, but WWE tries to sell us that, and they may believe their own hype. I actually believe that they believe that. But anyway, yeah, it's fake. I don't think that there's, at least maybe it's not fake, but it's delayed. Sometimes you'll see the crowd reacting and the meter isn't yet reacting, and then they'll quiet down and then the meter, spikes. So maybe there's a bit of a delay in the on-screen meter versus what's actually happening live in that exact second. All right. So I'm siding with Kevin Owens. Cody is the one who teamed with Roman, KO's archenemy. And why would KO get sued for punching Cody in the face? Tons of other people backstage have brawls, and they aren't sued and banned from coming to any shows. That's all. There's no consistency here. This is where you need to understand this is professional wrestling. And yeah, I could complain about that too. It doesn't make any sense. A lot of times you'll see people get arrested and it's, put in handcuffs. You'll see sometimes the cops come in and it's like, well, how is somebody being arrested for this, but not this? There's no consistency with that. It's all storyline driven and what they're trying to tell and what chapter of the story they're in and what they're trying to set up for and lay the foundation for. So there's no consistency in that regard. And I don't expect there to be, but it is, if you're looking at it in any kind of logical common sense context, it's preposterous. Yeah. This is just like, yeah, that makes no sense, but that's where you just need to go, you know what? This is wrestling. Let's just go, right? Otherwise you won't be able to enjoy it with things like that. Sometimes I need to take my own advice. All right. So, Darren, well, my bad. Darren, I missed your email. You're a patron, so I apologize. So I don't want to miss it. Darren, let's go. I apologize. So he says, hey, WWE Podcast family. And this is the final email, by the way. So about the presumed Goldberg-Gunther match, I'm really hoping it's not at WrestleMania. What I think they should do is at SummerSlam. They're obviously trying to make SummerSlam feel bigger with it 2 nights. So I'd rather them do it there instead of taking away a WrestleMania title match from someone else. That is, if they have to do it at all. Plus, that will give him more time to get in ring shape, really work on that spear and jackhammer, Darren. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He needs to make sure that he has all the weapons in his arsenal ready to go. That big pile of maneuvers that he has to get ready for and sharpen up, like the spear and the jackhammer. And the jackhammer, and then there's the spear that he has to do and make sure that he gets ready to do that, because without the jackhammer and the spear, there can't be a spear and jackhammer. So there is that. Throw in the occasional clothesline and the occasional scream, and you've got a full bag of tricks ready to go for Goldberg. But you're exactly right, and they are trying to make SummerSlam the WrestleMania of the summer. I really don't have a problem with that. They've clearly seen that the WrestleMania 2-night format is a wild success, not just from a fan's feedback perspective, but from a money perspective. They get to sell 2 tickets. They get to have twice the amount of nights for merch sales. And it's just, it's more successful too for the city in terms of money. People have to stay an additional night if you buy 2 tickets, if you're going for both nights. And from a viewer's perspective, hey, way easier to digest 5 matches a night versus, or 6 matches a night versus 12 in one night. I think we all can collectively agree 6 or 5 in a night is much more enjoyable, more time to be able to tell the story. Fans' attention is at a much higher level. The exhaustion doesn't set in nearly like it does on a 7-hour night. And it also builds anticipation for the next night. You can create a whole weekend around it. It's a whole weekend event now, not just crammed into one night. It's just the 2-night experience is just infinitely better in every way. So I love it. So thanks, Darren. And I apologize again. for missing your email. So I double check everything. All right, that'll do it for the emails. I think we might squeeze in a voicemail. Let's do that right now and then close out the show.
This is DJ Kuzmo back at it again on your Mailbag show. Records you live on a Wednesday morning, and you know what time it is. It's time to
say his name and he appears. I believe in Joe Hendry. I believe in Joe Hendry.
That's right, folks. Joe Hendry is his name. As I take it to my 17th episode of the Joe Hendry Report, as I'm coming to you from an undisclosed location, let's take you back to this past episode of TNA Pro Wrestling, as this was the fallout from TNA Bound for Glory, and it was also a Halloween special. We did get Joe Hendry in attendance, but at first it was an impersonator, somebody disguised as Joe Hendry, and it was none other than Frankie Kazarian with the blonde wig, the blue shirt, and the Nikes, and the white pants. He came to insult the crowd, talking about how all you losers was believing in a guy by the name of Joe Hendry, and he didn't finish the deal at Bound for Glory. But then all of a sudden, here comes the real Joe Hendry, and Joe Hendry and the fake Joe Hendry had their little face-off. Kind of similar to that Spider-Man meme when the both Spider-Mans are pointing at each other. They had that same sequence. Anyway, Joe Hendry mentions that he's still ticked off about what the events that transpired in the match because of John Bradshaw Layfield and his possible connections with none other than the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, Nick Nemeth. Here comes Nick Nemeth to squash that off and saying that he had no connection with John Bradshaw Layfield when he attacked his brother, when he attacked Joe Hendry, and of course when he attacked Frankie Kazarian during the match. But he did mention that he spoke to Santino Marella after rewatching the match and seeing that Joe Hendry got screwed. He spoke to the commissioner of TNA Pro Wrestling, Santino Marella, to tell him, let's give Joe Hendry a rematch tonight. But Santino Marella says no and squashes that, so we don't know when we're going to get a rematch of the TNA World Heavyweight Championship of Joe Hendry versus Nick Nemeth, because he said something about how the system is flawed. Hint, hint. Here comes the system of JDC and Eddie Edwards and Alicia, and they came in. And now we're having the sequence of a possibility that we're going to have a tag team match, which officially it became a tag team match of JDC and Eddie Edwards of the System versus Joe Hendry and Nick Nemeth. So we fast forward to the main event, in which none other than the System of Eddie Edwards and JDC got the victory over Joe Hendry and Nick Nemeth because of one miscommunication, and that was Joe Hendry attacked Nick Nemeth by accident, as we saw during the course of the match by accident as he was going for a clothesline. He hit him by accident. He's out the ring, and then here comes Eddie Edwards with the Boston Knee Party to Nick Nemeth. And 1, 2, 3, the match is over. The System wins, and what's going to be as a continuation of this, let's see what happens as we catch up on the next episode of TNA Pro Wrestling. But let's talk about what took place outside of TNA Pro Wrestling, as Joe Hendry is yet again traveling to do his shows and promote his brand. As he went to France, I guess it was on Friday or Thursday, which actually it was Thursday because it was a TV taping of TNA Pro Wrestling. So on October 31st, he was in France to do a concert of the We Believe concert down in Paris, France. And then on Saturday, November 2nd, he was in Chicago as he was part of the Fourth Rope promotional wrestling event called the Heels Eyes 3, which of course is none other than West Side Gunner the rapper. This is his wrestling promotion, and MVP is the commissioner of Fourth Rope. So Joe Hendry had a match with AJ Francis, aka Top Dollar or Top Flopper, in this match that took place in Chicago on Saturday, November 2nd, in which Joe Hendry gets the victory with the standing ovation chokeslam. And 1, 2, 3. That's all she wrote as Joe Hendry gets the victory. What's next for Joe Hendry, as we could see the continuation of him in the TNA World Heavyweight Championship picture? Where does John Bradshaw Layfield come into this? And when will this rematch happen for Joe Hendry? Hopefully it happens before the end of the year on an episode of TNA Pro Wrestling, or maybe at the next pay-per-view event. Regardless of whatever it is, I always remember you guys to believe. Say his name. Remember the words that Joe Hendry says. Anytime, any place, at any show. And most importantly, do this.
Wave your hands from I believe in Joe Hendry. Joe Hendry is so prestigious.
Once again, this is your guy, DJ Kuzmo. Have a blessed week. Be kind to one another. Stay safe, my friends. Believe and peace.
Thank you so much, DJ. And the Joe Hendry experiment continues. And I think it's a successful one at that. He is still TNA World Heavyweight Champion. The JBL thing is, it's really interesting. JBL decided to kind of step back in for a little bit and do what he did. And I'm not against it. As they always say, it is in your blood. I believe that. Everybody who says they're done is almost never done. And I don't think it's anything long-term for JBL. Maybe just getting this itch or scratching the itch that he's had for a little while and then bowing back out. But Joe Hendry clearly still is successful. Having a successful run in TNA, but when he comes back to the big leagues for good and decides to sign with WWE, I still am aiming for a early February debut at the Royal Rumble, or at least a quick appearance. They do have a bit of a relationship with TNA, as we saw last year with the women, so we will likely get that again, I think, this year. If not a full introduction, at least a tease that Joe Hendry is going to be a big guy, big star on the main roster, and the pop for him will be big. But thank you for keeping us updated, DJ, as I say every single week. And that'll do it for me here on the WWE Podcast on our Mailbag Show. You want to follow us on Twitter, you can do that, or X, at the WWE Podcast. Search us there. We're the verified blue badge. And also, don't forget, on Patreon, yes, you can go ad-free, but if you subscribe for a full year, right now, very limited time, for a few days only, 50% off over at Patreon for the yearly, not the monthly, the yearly subscription to any tier, 50% off, and use the code Bloodline. That's the code. Otherwise, you won't get the 50% off for the year. Again, that's code Bloodline. So check that out over on Patreon, and I'll be back on Sunday night with your week in review. Amanda will be here for you on your SmackDown review tomorrow morning from the UK. She always does a great job. Really appreciate Amanda. And I hope you guys check it out. So that'll do it for me tonight, guys. Hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day and their weekend. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.